everybody. Welcome.
The show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, everybody. And it's a sad show tonight for this blog talk. For that portion, we are on our last blog talk episode. However, our shows are still going on. You're still going to be seeing us.
You're stuck with us.
Yeah, every Thursday, and we still will be live on Facebook, live on YouTube. Our Anchor FM venues, the 9 of them, they're still all going. Spotify, iHeart, RSS, Pocket Cast. I don't even know all of them. Right, all those are still going. It's just this is the end of Blog Talk with Denny and Tiffany. Many years of happiness and great times that we've had with them, and we appreciate them. And at this time, I'd love to just give a little shout out to them, to Tiffany Beth and Melissa Ann with the Midnight Beauties. They do some really cool makeup things. They just they did some glam for the holidays. They do really cool movie makeups, horror movie makeups and genres and stuff, really neat things, They try all kinds of different palettes that, you guys could try too. So check them out, Midnight Beauties. Check out their Facebook page, go to their YouTube page, check them out there. They're a lot of fun, and they do a lot of things. And Mama D's got one little announcement too to make before we start our show tonight.
I have created a Facebook group called the Butterfly Network. There we will be doing readings and stuff like that there. So if you want to join it, just pop in the Butterfly Network on Facebook. And right now it's an open group, so we'll see how it goes. And it might stay that way or we might change it. But it's going to be a fun and hopefully an interactive group.
Very, very cool.
Jimmy's already said yes.
Yes, I've joined. I'm in. It's like, yes, I hit join. It's like, you're in. It's like, oh, woohoo, I'm in. All right. So tonight.
Like I gave for a choice, really?
Yeah. Well, like I wouldn't want to be there. But anyway, tonight we have JB Yanni. She's waiting for us. So I'm going to play a little video, just a short little video that just shows who she is. And she'll be with us as soon as this video is over. Everybody, I am Gina B here with Mama D every Thursday evening from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the Fox Den. Tonight we have novelist JB Yanni. She takes us on a journey with a pair of captivating books, the Time Bender series. Book 1, Time Benders the Machine, and Book 2, Time Benders and the Two Promises. These challenge us to confront the moral and practical implications of time travel. These heartwarming books pack a punch of history, faith, and science that explore the what-ifs of life's most significant moments. Yanni says the 3 underlying messages of the Time Bender series are closeness of family and how that makes the individuals stronger, the importance of faith in our lives, and that young people are empowered to accomplish great things. We welcome you to the Fox Den. And there she is. Hi.
Good evening. And loved your intro video. That was wonderful.
It's just good.
I know. I didn't know if I tried to send it. I wasn't sure if you had gotten it in time because I made it. I did. I made it late. I've been like, it's just been a rough week for me. And usually I do have the books read before the show. However, this time I only have the first book and just a little bit into the second book done. So don't give anything away. The second book for me because
I'll tell it all.
I'm looking forward to finishing this weekend. But they are really cool books. Like every time I read a book like this, I think of it as if I was sitting watching the movie. So I have, I have the way the kids all look because it's a family scene. I have the way the kids all look and everything, and and I play it through, and I'm like, this would be a great series on Netflix. That's what I keep thinking,
Yes, and this is one of the problems I always have. If I read a book first, I've got an image of what is going to, what everyone's going to look like and what everything is going to play out. And then I go see the movie and I'm a little disappointed because it doesn't look what I envisioned when I read it.
Oh, I know, I know.
hopefully, hopefully if it gets there, that won't happen for you.
Yeah, right. So I mean, hey, it is what it is. I mean, but reading books and what they do in the movies are always different. It's always better to read the books because then
Yeah.
you get the true story.
Yeah,
And
the last time I did that was on the Samurai. The Last Samurai. I read the book. I was in love with it. Then I watched the movie and I was like, ooh.
which
Like,
one?
okay,
Because they made a few of those. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes, I took my daughter to the Harry Potter movies after she had read all the stories,
yeah.
and she was
oh,
heartily
cool.
disappointed. They cut out this, they put in that.
Right. Yeah, my daughter was like that too. Oh God.
Yes.
She's like, oh, that's not right. That's not right. That's this. That's this. I'm like, well, I didn't read the book, so I'm just watching the movies, and I like the movies. But but that's how it goes. And these books, they're easy reads. It's just that it's so close to the holidays, and there's so much going on. And then we get the snowstorm from
She had a
Haiti.
snowstorm. She had a Quebec snowstorm in PA.
Oh my goodness.
Ugh, you know. And it's just like shoveling just kind of put me out of whack, and I just couldn't sit and read. But
Oh, I'm so
but,
sorry.
but
We
you
don't
know,
know,
I
I
mean,
don't know where I am yet.
not that I don't want to, because I do. The books are awesome. Hi Doris, hi Ed, hi Barbara, hi my love, Bob, Bill,
Excuse me,
Dave,
your love?
all you guys, my love,
Yes.
my
Sorry.
Hour,
It's
hour.
okay.
I
love.
share
Wow,
them during the show. I share them.
okay, I love Bob.
There you go.
But yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I've tried my lighting and it's just I can't get my lighting situated tonight.
I know it's very
It's like
bright.
there's. It's like the light is just shining down on you.
Yes.
Yeah, very bright. You're a bright shining star. What do you want?
There you go.
but
I'm
but
sorry about that.
all right. So now people have like kind of no clue what we're talking about. All right, these books, Time Benders. All right, it
Yeah.
is about time travel, and it is family oriented. But what was it? What made you write these books or this type of a book?
Well, time travel has always been something that fascinated me, both from the literature that I've read, movies, stories, etc. And it's an interesting concept. If you could, what would you do? And I really wanted to put the teenagers in that for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's nice to have a story where teens are doing something positive, and
Yes.
two, having raised children, I can say, that it's sometimes very difficult to find material that interests all of them. And so, what I really wanted to do was create something that would be age appropriate for, some maybe more a little bit advanced readers at a young age, but give them some history, some math, some science, some actual teen activities, so that they could find something exciting there in those pages. So, that was really my goal.
Oh, and you did that so well too. The characters, I mean, because and they range in ages, and there are four siblings, and you're from four siblings. I'm from four siblings. You know,
Yes.
I was like, I know my family doesn't get along
3.5.
as well as those kids did, but we get along. But I don't know if we.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
No
when
family
you
is perfect.
yes, no family's perfect. When you grow up, you have your tense times, your tense ages, your camaraderie. It depends a lot on how distant you are from your next siblings. But I think one of the things we realize as we get a little bit older is, that was all valuable, even those tense times, which
Mhm.
is also kind of an underpinning of the Time Bender stories. Is you know just because there's difficulty and grief and things in your life, doesn't mean that you want to get rid of those aspects. You want those to be part of your life because that's also how you learn and appreciate the blessings that you have. So, as I look back on my childhood, yes, we had some tense times, but, we came through that. And now as adults, we look back on that fondly and laugh about some of those incidents that occurred when we were younger.
Oh yeah, we do too. We had many of those moments.
Yeah.
Many of those moments. But you know what? Here's a question. If there was something in your life that had happened, would there be something that you might want to go back and change?
Well, as I think back on my life, I suppose there were a couple of things that I wish I'd done differently. But at the same time, I also think, okay, I learned some important lessons from those things that I
Mhm.
maybe would have wanted to do differently. But I think everyone has that moment in their life where they look back on something and they say, "Ooh, I wish I'd have handled that better," or "I wish I'd have chosen that course instead of that course." We all have those moments, and so I think that's one of the things that's very relatable about this story is you're talking about some people who had an event happen in their life that was very tragic, but just because there was a tragedy, do you want to simply take it away, or do you want to learn from that tragedy and move forward from it? And so, I think even though we might someday have the ability to move through time, simply to go back and correct some wrong of your life may not be the right use of that tool, because
Right.
there's some lessons in there.
Right, right. I mean, because that's the thing. You go back, and I mean, there have been movies like Butterfly Effect. You know what I mean? You step on one
Yes.
moth, and there it goes.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, just like this you go into a lot of different realms with them going back, and it's a lot in the 60s, 70s political kind of stuff too. When you stop messing with politics, I mean, lots of things could happen, but
Exactly.
here are kids, kids aren't thinking that, they're just thinking their one goal. I wanted to have this happen, and the only way that I can think to make this happen is to change this, but they don't think of all the repercussions, really.
Right. They don't think through all those repercussions, which is why I, particularly in the first book, picked a pivotal moment in U.S. history.
Oh,
Because,
yeah, huge one.
you know, because just because there's that pivotal thing occurring, and you want to change it just a little bit, there's some implications of that. And, it does affect downstream what will happen. And, gee, was that such a great idea? And did you really think that through? Again, they're teenagers in this story. So,
Exactly,
So
exactly.
who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, because I mean, as you're reading it, you're going, "Oh, come on, not that! Come on, just think." But it's
exactly,
so
teenagers, no disrespect intended for the young people in the crowd, but, they don't have the wisdom of looking back on years of their life. And
And
so
move on.
they
Yeah.
maybe don't understand the intricacies of all those moving parts. And,
I know.
you could affect something else. So,
I know. Just
yeah.
things like politics. Just like for instance, I was thinking about this too. I was going, depending on who's in office and who's getting let into the country. Like my grandparents. My grandparents came from Italy. My other grandparents on the other side came from Finland. What if they couldn't come into the country? I wouldn't be here.
Exactly. And that's, I think, the fascinating part about time travel is if you go back and you do something, how will it
Yeah.
affect the people in the future, or the next generation, or the next several generations, or even 5 or 6 generations down the road? If you change that one thing, it seems like it might be a good idea, but you
Yeah,
can't
Yeah. Think
foresee.
of what's coming with the dominoes. Exactly. I
exactly.
think I
And
think
then
everybody in their life at one point or another thought, "Oh God, if I could go back and just undo this." Because I know I used to. I used to sit there just before I was kind of like open-minded. Is if I could just go back and not do that, then my life would be so much better. But then if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be the me that I am today. So I'm like, okay, if I could just go back and watch myself and just maybe smack myself, would that be okay?
I know. Can I just take back a couple
Yeah,
little parts of
if you could just be there in the background and just say, "Don't do that, dummy."
I know.
Yeah.
Think. There is a tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. If only we all had one of those, right? Uh,
Oh,
I still sometimes wish for that. If I just had somebody that could second guess what I'm about to say or do,
Oh,
and
yeah.
make sure that I don't make a big giant mistake, that I'll regret a week from now or a year from now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
now,
but in the Time Benders books, they start out really wanting to correct the big tragedy in their life, the loss of their parents, and what
right,
they learn is one, there are repercussions for that, and two, it doesn't always turn out the way you wanted it to.
Yeah.
Um, so you have to really think about, is that really going to help the situation? And they do come to that conclusion, that perhaps the things that they want to accomplish and even the things they've accomplished with that time machine couldn't have happened if their parents hadn't perished in that accident. And so they have to start kind of changing their view about their world, and they find when they look around that they've become monumentally closer than they would have been had their parents been there. They would
Mm.
have kind of gone about their own things and not paid much attention to one another.
right.
And
So
they
Ken
really
being
come
the
to value
oldest,
that.
yeah, Ken being the oldest took that, parental role really to heart. He was going to be almost 18, when it
Yes.
happened at 18, and luckily they were, left some money and stuff too that they could be in charge of, and that there's an aunt involved, and so there's like real life stuff going on, so you have a big scene. Now they're at a boarding school, which is like a religious boarding school. So now there's religion in here too. So because you're going to masses, and you have, you can't
Yeah.
be late for your dinners, and you have your blessings at your dinners and everything else. And so they're trying to lead a life here. And I love how they find the time machine too. That was really kind of
Yes,
cool how they stumble
and
across.
they come from a Christian background, but because of the loss of their parents, they're really questioning, as anyone I think
Yeah.
will do when they lose someone. How do you reconcile this loving Christian teaching you have with this sudden loss of someone that's so significant in your life? And that big why question that everybody asks in that situation, for them starts to play out a little bit in terms of us of spiritual questioning.
Yeah.
Is this a loving God that I've learned all about if they're making me live without my parents? And that is part of their learning experience through the use of the time machine and the school and the things they encounter. They really come to the conclusion that, you know, yes, I recognize that there might have been a plan. My free choice might take me kind of off the plan, but that spiritual being is always there with me, and they understand that, and it
Yeah.
brings some ease of that grief.
Yeah. But then too, you have also that even though you're going back and you change something and your outcome is not exactly what you want, you change some things, but the tragedy is still going to be, just in a different form. It's still happening. So it's like, when everyone says God has a plan for you, your life is laid out, like it's a roadmap of your life. And people say, I don't have an expiration date here. Well, maybe you do,
Yes.
Yeah.
and
Well, and the kids in the stories do come to the conclusion that you might be able to steer on and off a path that had been sort of set for you by the choices you make. But that end date is sort of determined by that higher power. And maybe not at the beginning, but that end date is chosen. And you can't really mess with that. and
yeah, yeah,
and they come to that conclusion in the second book because they've tried now a couple of times to fix that situation with their parents and progressively made it worse. And they
yep,
come to this conclusion, okay, it must have been their time and it must mean that we're supposed to go forward without them. and rely on one another and be close as a family, and create this new family to
Yep.
move forward and gain strength from.
Right. So, guys, if you're going to order these books, you got to get both of them. You really do.
Yeah.
And especially like as soon as I finished the first one, I had to read the first chapter and the second one right away because it goes like that. And then I haven't been able to get back to it. And I've been like, ugh.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
really,
I'm sorry to report that I do that G again at the second one.
oh, damn it.
The
Okay.
third one is just about finished, so it should be out shortly after the first of the year. So you won't have to wait very long.
Okay, good.
How
We'll make
many
an
books?
when the third one comes out, we'll make an announcement.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Let us, when the third one comes out, we'll make an announcement. We'll advertise for you. So just let us
Well,
know
thank
that
you.
it's out and we'll pump it in. How many
Absolutely.
books do you think you're going to have in this series? Because I'm sure most
Well,
writers have an idea about, how many that they want.
As I've written the first two and now into the third, obviously the children grow, right? The
Mhm.
oldest goes into college, then the
Yeah.
second one starts college, and now they're all sort of advancing in age. They're learning some important lessons about the use of that time machine, and whether or not, because of an incident that occurs in the second book, I won't spoil it for you,
Yeah.
Gina.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
I like to watch a movie being popped.
I won't spoil it for you, but there's a little bit of an incident in the second book where they come across their main protagonist, the universe, and the rules they can't violate in terms of their traveling through time, and it becomes a bit of a scary situation. And so they start to abruptly understand that perhaps this time machine isn't something they should use to hop around and do things, and that it should be used more expeditiously. In the third book, I'll tell you, because this is on my website, so you can read this. They do go to pre-Civil War Philadelphia and find themselves a bit entangled with the Fugitive Slave Acts and some things. And again, they do something that completely changes downstream in our history, and then they have to take some steps to fix that. So the third book is going to be called Time Benders and the Long Road Home. That'll be a sneak of some things happening there.
Oh,
And
cool.
in
Cool.
terms of how many, I think, because of the lessons they're learning and how they're evolving, I'm not sure there'll be more than four. But I do have four kind of planned out at this point. So,
Ah.
there'll probably be four. I'm not sure there'll be a fifth.
Well, with 4 books, with the storylines being as they are, just what I know of the first book and what I already started in the second, what I figure is going to happen, that's a whole Netflix series right there.
There
You
you go.
know, that's a binge-worthy thing. 9 episodes in one day.
Oh, yeah. I'm
They're
there.
all, yeah.
With my
They're all-
snacks all piled up and just sit
Yep.
here.
I just did that with Bob the other day. We did a series, and it was like, oh, this is good. I thought it was a movie, and then all of a sudden it was like next episode, and we went, oh no.
Yeah, and then you find yourself a few hours later thinking, I
Mhm.
can't stop now.
Right.
It's like, I got to feed. I got to what?
Morning, 2 in the morning, I watched the last episode. I was like,
Wow.
with my toothpicks, but I couldn't
Yeah.
stop watching. I just,
Especially this year, right?
yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, yeah. All right. So, how close is this? Like I said before, you have 4 siblings. How close is the relationship in the books to your real
In
family?
real life, I think there's aspects of all of my siblings' personalities in the four characters of the book. My some of my siblings have read it and commented about the fact that oh, I see myself in that person, or I see you in that person. So there is, some aspects of our personalities prevailing in those characters, as well as some favorite teachers, and some people who have been influential in my life. There's some characters in there that are a lot like some people that I have encountered in my life. I think For me as a writer, there's no really other way to do it than to start working on a character and realize they're a lot like that neighbor you had growing up, or that person you were when you were a teenager, or
Right.
some things about you. It's from life that I think you get the most depth of characters.
Yeah, that
Do you
makes
have a
sense.
favorite?
Well, I guess I would probably say Deb is my favorite because, quite frankly, she's the most like me.
Yep, yep, right. Yep. I was gonna say you're Deb, definitely. Yep.
I spent a lot of time in the library growing up and reading, and that was my safe haven. And so she's a lot like me. So I probably see more of myself in her than any of the other characters.
Yeah. And Kimmy's cute. She just, she's just like the little she's tagging along and she's trying to be, because everyone's got they're so unique. They're all different, you know.
Yes,
And
yes,
and Joe gets me upset sometimes.
yeah.
you know. And I mean, but he's he's a young teenager and a brainiac. So you know,
Yes, and sometimes along with that supersonic brain activity, you do some things, you jump into some things without thinking about it before you've done it, and that's Joe. That's very much Joe.
absolutely, absolutely. Oh my gosh.
So
So
Joe is the one that found the time machine, right? The
He
plans
is
for the
the
time
one
machine.
that found the papers, and he is a kind of a math whiz, and so he comes across these papers. They at some point, sneak into an unused building on the campus of their boarding school, and
because it was
um,
haunted.
yes, because
Yeah.
because little Kimmy thinks it's haunted, so they have to go check it out. And while they're there, they find records of people who've been there, including their father, who had been a student there, and John F. Kennedy, who had been a student there, and Joe goes back and he starts digging through some other places in the building and comes across all these notebooks with all these math formulas in them and what he describes in the story as a little prototype of something. So he takes those to his reclusive caretaker friend. He's made friends with someone on the campus who's very into science, and they sit down and they figure out this math problem, which is the secret to bending time. It includes, general relativity and some other math, and they discover that that's what it's doing, and that the prototype must be the machine that will generate the energy and the force necessary to move through time and run that mathematical formula and move them through time. So Joe very excitedly engages his other siblings because he's found a way to go back and save their parents.
Yep.
Mhm.
They
Of course, they're all like, "Oh yes, yay!" you know.
they
Yeah.
are, they are on the one hand excited about that prospect, but also a little bit reluctant. And so they begrudgingly agree to work on this because, they want to support their brother.
Mhm.
Deb steps in at that point and she does all the research because that's her area of expertise. And she discovers all kinds of things about their parents and when they met and what happened to make them get into the things they were in as adults that put them on the path of this plane accident. So she, being a 15-year-old, picks a point in history where her father was going to meet his business partner, and she decides if they change that they will change the entire course of their adult lives, and they won't be on that plane.
Yep.
So they embark on this effort to go back and affect that moment in history. And, again, I don't want to be a spoiler, but um, anyone who's older than 40 will recognize the picture on the front of the book as the book depository in Dallas. And so they go back and they fiddle with John F. Kennedy's assassination. And so It doesn't turn out the way they planned, which is very frustrating to Joe in particular. And so, right at the end of the book, he takes another step in the time machine to try and solve that problem.
Yeah. Dave says, do they run into themselves?
Not in book one, although they do have a lot of conversations about the fact that they can't run into one another. But in book two, we find out that Joe's activities at the end of book one bring him dangerously close to himself. And they do spend a good portion of the second book talking about that space-time continuum and how you can't be in the same space-time as yourself. And that's the scary incident they run into is that they get too close to themselves. So they don't ever actually run into one another, but they learn in the second book how dangerous that can be. And so they then switch gears in their second book and start to use the time machine to help others.
Okay. I have a quick question. Well, it's probably not quick, the answer. With all this mathematical and science and faith and family and all the intricacies, but especially the science, what did you have to do a lot of research to figure out? Because most of the book has to have a certain amount of reality to it. So, yeah. But the research that you had to go into.
Yeah, I mean, science fiction itself does require that sort of suspension of disbelief, right? Because you're taking people to a place that's not quite reality. But I really wanted to create a story that was just plausible, right?
Yeah.
You can just see yourself figuring out this math problem, building this machine, and hopping into it and going and changing history. So it was really important to me to stay as close to possible to actual theory and actual science, which, by the way, Joe isn't me. Science is not my thing. Never was my thing. And so I did have to do quite a bit of research for that. So, unfortunately for me, I have an adult child who's very into math and science. So he became a fantastic resource.
There we go.
As well as the fact that I, spent a lot of time in the library.
Yeah, you can tell it's believable. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, that's what I mean. I could see the story going on. I could see how the things would happen, how they built the machine. It's not a big, beautiful machine. It's not like H.G. Wells' version of the beautiful
It's not
thing.
the Lamborghini from Back to the Future.
Nope, it's not that. And it's the kids in that caretaker man, they built it, they put it together with things that they had available to do so, but they left the room and the space for all the components, all the the electronics and the computers that they needed, so everything's in there. But even the way you described that, and I don't even want to describe it, I really don't, because I want you guys to get this and read it, because the description, when I got to that point, I was like, I took a little snapshot of the description of it and sent it to Mama. I'm like, look at this thing.
Yeah, it's just so nice that way.
I know.
Well, it was also the 70s. We didn't have Amazon, we didn't have the internet, and we didn't have cell phones. So if you wanted to build something, and it was made out of metal or any kind of electronics, one of your probably best resources was a junkyard. And so, it didn't always end up pretty, but it did the job you wanted it to do. And that really was the path the kids took in the story was, here's what we can find, here's what we'll use. We need a door. Okay, this will work as a door. And so,
Oh, that's so true. It's so true in the 70s, and that's what they were all doing too. Like 70s and stuff. All the guys, their cars, they would buy these cars that they could take apart and put it back together so they can go. I can do that. Can't do that now. The computers wouldn't be able to do. Yeah,
JoJo says Radio Shack.
Yeah, Radio Shack. I know they don't even have
Yeah,
radio.
there wasn't even a Radio Shack probably when this book
Back
took
then.
place. But yeah, I really, that was also one of my goals, was to take readers out of the cell phone age.
Mhm.
How
Yeah,
would you
Google,
learn
Google
things?
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, how would you learn things? How would you find things if you didn't have a cell phone to look it up or Amazon to go to? Uh, So they do spend a lot of time in the library and they talk about that. Oh,
Yep.
let's go read about this on the microfilm, because that's how you learned about things, in the 70s. You went to the library and you looked for books or
Yeah.
maps
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
magazines.
Encyclopedias.
Yeah,
Dewey Decimal
encyclopedias,
System.
right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so they spend a lot of time, doing their research in a library, and so one of the things that was also important to me was to, put some of that research and some of those notes in the back of the book. So there's some notes in the back of the book where I explain what parts of this are actually real, and what parts I sort of embellished and made up, and some of the things that I learned in my research, in the hopes that if somebody saw that, read the story, and went, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if I could learn a little bit more about,"
Mhm.
there's some jumping off points from the back of the book to help people go find some other things about the subjects I cover.
Yeah, that was great because now in case if you weren't paying attention in history class or whatever, we'd be going back into history on these. I mean, but they're pivotal moments, so people should know 'em. But if you weren't paying attention, she
Yeah,
does what this was
Stop
fact
looking
and
at me
this
like
was
that.
fictional. This was this was fiction. This was fact, and you can't look them up. So I thought that was a good touch too. Absolutely. I think it's just so cool that your mind works like this, that to see a story like that, for me, I mean, I would have to, if I was going to write a book, I would have to write a book about, doing something like, like what I'm going to be, I want to write a book on, helping people, with the method and the this and the that, things to do, but to tell a story like this, it's like, I mean, do you dream these things and then just wake up and start writing things, like, oh, I could do this, or, I mean,
interestingly, it came for me in fits and starts. Oh, I want to do a story about teenagers. Oh, I want to make sure that they do this kind of thing. And then what I would find is, I'd be taking a shower, out gardening, and I'd be almost listening to the characters having conversations. And, I'd be playing that out. And, I would stop and go, oh, I didn't realize Ken thought that way, or I didn't realize that's where they were headed with that, with that track in the story. So, the first two books really kind of flowed out pretty smoothly because of those sort of internal conversations I was having. This third one's been a little bit tougher because I really wanted to focus on what would happen if they spent a long time somewhere. And, the character development was really important to me.
mm, hmm, this is cool. This is cool. Oh my god. So, all right, so I got to get through the second one, and then you got to sign me up for the third one
Third
as soon as
one,
it comes out.
third and
You got to
fourth.
send. Yeah,
Then
you
we're
got to
going to
send it.
order the book set, all four.
Yeah, right away. Yeah, right away. And
Well, we'll probably offer a book set when I get done with the fourth one, because then I'm
Okay.
pretty sure it's going to be four. But
yeah, yeah, I know that's the thing. When you do a series like this, I mean, you got to get them all. You do.
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
Darian's books. I mean, Darian's great.
Yeah.
Her realm is her realm, but this is a lot of fact and mixed with the science fiction. But I just like the twist on with the kids, and how you're bringing them in, and then they're making such huge decisions,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, at first I was worried about that, quite frankly. Is it appropriate for a 15-year-old to be making a decision? Okay, if I change my parents' life when they started their business, will I affect their downstream life? Or, we have this power to travel through time. What should we do with it? Those are some pretty big concepts, and
Yeah,
and
because they could have affected it where they were never born.
Yeah.
right, and so it really was an effort to put it in the perspective of a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 10-year-old, as opposed to an adult who's experienced so much.
Mm.
I rewrote a bunch of conversations trying to make it not sound like they were maybe a little more mature than they were supposed to be.
Oh, I know that would be really tough. There's that line because and then as you're reading it too, and as an adult reader, I mean, as a child reader, I'm probably sure they're going to be more siding with the kids, like yeah, go ahead. And as an adult, we're like, oh my god, what are you picking this for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that?
No, bad. Don't do this. But it really makes you stop. I stopped a few times. I really did. And I'm going, geez, if I could go back and change something, seriously, would I? You know, and then should you? That's the bigger
Yeah.
thing. Is like,
Yeah,
should you?
it's beyond would you, it's a should you kind of
Yeah.
answer,
Mhm.
and that's one that the thing I found in my research. The academic crowd has absolutely put just a lot of thought and a lot of effort into thinking through what would happen if you could go through time. And what they've come up with is a series of what they refer to as time traveling paradoxes. If you could go back in time and say you went to the place where your grandfather was growing up and you startled him by telling him you just traveled through time, and he jumped up from somewhere and ran into the street and got hit by a car.
Ooh,
Right.
yeah.
There you go.
Where
And then
your parent was conceived and you got back in the time machine and went back, would you be there?
yep.
Yeah.
Or
Exactly.
would, and the scientists have thought that out and said, would you be there or would you just be in an alternative universe?
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the butterfly effect, we're all real familiar with that one.
Yep.
If you go back and you step on a moth and you come back and, there's no other human being because of something that, how far back you went.
Right.
So there is this ripple effect.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you go back
And the one person that came up with the vaccine for something didn't, or
exactly.
or this family wasn't born because of that. Like I said about the political thing, like my grandparents wouldn't come over because maybe they wouldn't be allowed in the country. Things
Right.
like that. There's like families. It's global. I mean,
Right.
one
There's a
person
ripple.
could have a
Yeah.
global effect on all this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
This one.
Ooh,
What,
interesting
what
question.
what if spirits we encounter are time travelers? That was a thing that I did when I was on that Paranormal 13 News. I did a little thing on that. You don't really know. You don't really
Yeah,
know.
you
'Cause, I
don't
mean,
really
Yeah.
know. That's part of the unknown of time travel is, scientifically, what you're talking about is changing the speed at which you're traveling in comparison to what's currently going on in the universe, faster or much slower. And
mhm.
if you speed up so dramatically that you now have access to, say, multiple times at a single time, would you encounter spirits? Would you encounter beings that, had been deceased for decades?
Yeah.
Um,
I
you
mean, if
know,
I could go back in time, I think I would want to go back to like Egypt to see if it was aliens that were helping build the pyramids, stuff like that. I mean, that's like what I would want to see, something like that or something biblical. You know what I mean? I would
yeah,
like to go back and see Jesus walking around. You know what I mean? I would like, yeah, I mean, I would like to see stuff like that. But for the most part, if I could time travel, I would want to go in the future.
yeah, and do what?
Yeah.
I want to see what's going to happen. I mean, I'd be like, I mean, is it Nostradamus time? Are we going to be living in the stars? Are we going to still be on this planet because we're killing our planet
Yes,
faster than we can
but
save it?
having learned that, what would you do?
maybe if there was something in the future
Mm.
that I could bring back to say we need this in place to like save the water, to save the trees, to save the ecosystem, to save something, you know, because it's going to be a catastrophic.
Yeah. All,
Epic.
all I'm saying is, right, you could go in future and you could go to a library and you could pull out a history book and you could find out, where someone wrote, if they'd only done this, then the ecosystem would have been okay. And then you take that information and you go back to your present and you say, you have to do this. And then you will save our ecosystem. Um, After they were done laughing at you,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Well,
Yeah.
let's think about that, right? After
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
were done
Yeah.
laughing at you,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
there is that aspect of you have to convince people now that
Right.
you went forward and you learned something, and everybody should listen to you.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
Well, everybody should listen to me anyway. Come on.
yeah. When I think about it, I always think about going back and meeting and observing famous people. Like I'd really like to go back and have a conversation with Joan of Arc,
That would be a cool one. Yep. Yep.
or
Yeah.
Marie
Gettysburg
Antoinette.
for her, and she loves Gettysburg. So I'm sure
Yeah,
she,
I'd like to go back and meet these famous women in history and have a conversation with them. But having done that, you will change who they become from that moment forward.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to talk to anybody. That's the thing. Like you wouldn't be able to interfere. But I would like to see things. But I would really like to see if if the aliens were coming and flying around. In Egypt. Back in that day, I
Yeah.
really would.
But the thought about us not talking to people is an impossibility.
Yeah.
Unless we
Please.
go together, then we could talk to each other. Because if we don't speak, then
Well,
Yeah.
of course we have to go together.
Yeah, you have to take someone with you. And
Yep.
then now someone's going to overhear you
JFK.
talking. And,
JFK. All right.
and the
If you like
likelihood that you
JFK,
leave something
Taryn,
behind,
Darren,
Yeah.
this is a book series. This is what we're talking about. She wrote a book series about children that are time traveling. And oh, look at this. Look at this. Could you
Mhm.
imagine history and preventing JFK death? Get the books, Taryn.
Get the
Yeah.
books. You'll like it.
in fact, I did imagine that.
Could you imagine?
I'm not going to spoil
Karma's a
it for you. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I did, in fact, imagine that, and you will find it there in the pages. What I imagined.
Yes.
That is one of my surprisingly favorite moments in U.S. history. Just the whole conspiracy theories around that date in history have always fascinated me. I'm one of those geeks that's actually read the Warren Report. And so, it had to be there because it, quite frankly, it's a point in history that I know a lot about because of my reading. So, yes, you'll find it there.
Yeah. Yep. 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 She's studied that time as well. Hi, Annie Fox. Yeah, Taryn, you would love these. You would love these books. I mean, it's just really cool. In the time periods that that they're going back in is the 70s. Era.
Their current time period is the 70s.
Yeah, it's the 70s, but they're going back to like JFK time to the pivotal points in history. And the second book where I haven't gotten to yet is about the slaves. So I mean,
in the second book, they go back into the 50s, and then they do go forward in the second book. So you'll get to see what happens there. And then in the third book, they go back farther in history to pre-Civil War, and they spend a lot of time there. So, oh yes, imagine if Hitler didn't exist. I'll point this out right now that's one of those paradoxes. They refer to it as the kill Hitler paradox. If you could go back and you could, kill him before he finished primary school, would that save the world? And the scientific theory is what you will end up doing is creating a vacuum and something potentially more evil will take its place.
Right.
I'd love to test that theory out.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're talking about, you
The
know,
thing is, it's like all these kids go back.
yes.
Why am I?
No, I'd love to test that theory out and take him out, because, imagine if that atrocity hadn't occurred in history. All the things, all the people who might have impacted, say, the climate and the ecological system, the political system, just our current culture. you know,
Everything would be different.
Everything would be very, very, very different. And I'd be
Yeah,
willing
imagine all
to,
the people that would be alive today.
yes, I'd be willing to risk, potentially making it worse if I could take that out of play, I think. But
Yeah,
um,
millions.
that's what the smart people think. They think
Yeah.
that you might create a vacuum and something more evil would occur.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I'm wondering if we go back there and try and fix him, whether you take him out or whatever, maybe you'll find out that he wasn't born a complete nut job, but it was something that happened from his parents or something. So you have to maybe let him live, but disregard what caused him to become a. I'm trying to be nice.
Yes,
A complete nut
or
job.
provide a counter influence to
Yeah.
whatever that was. Certainly, that's certainly a solution. There is to figure out where his pivotal moment was that
Yeah.
changed, and be there at that point and try and stop that change and that evolution. And in terms of the Titanic and 9/11, yeah, those don't feel like evil events. So boy, if you could go back and say, you know, don't get on this ship, or maybe you better check this more before you put this in the water, or don't go towards those icebergs.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or don't get on that plane, or stop those people from getting on those planes.
Yeah.
There's so many moments in history like that. Hiroshima. I mean, the creating an atom bomb. You know what I mean? There are
Yes.
many things that you know.
Yes. Was there a different answer to the atomic bombs dropped in Japan? Would there have been a different answer to, the wars in the Middle East? Would there have been a different answer, that maybe you could find?
How Vietnam was fought, Agent Orange. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many. I mean, really, if you had a time machine, oh my God, the brains in the world would be like, oh, you have to go to this, you have to go to that, you have to go to this, all over the place, and the world will be in utter chaos.
Well, in fact,
Worse than we already are.
yes. I'm sorry.
Yes. Worse than
I
we
said
all.
worse than we already are.
Yes, when you think about that question, if you take it back to something much more simple, right? If I could go back and I could make a different choice about that event in my life, if you think about it, I'll save making that big mistake. Yes, you might save making that mistake, but there are three others that are going to come because of that one mistake you didn't make.
Yep.
And as was pointed out, maybe everything happens for a reason, and we can't evolve as a culture, and we can't evolve as humans if we don't withstand that tragedy. And in our own personal lives, if you don't,
I love that.
if you don't, if you don't look for those lessons in those tragedies, you can't grow, and you can't actually appreciate the good things that could happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like if I had never met my husband, then my children would never be born. And they are what I live and breathe for. If I hadn't have done this, then all kinds
Wait a
of
minute. How do you live and breathe for me?
Exactly.
after my children.
Okay. All right.
Because they listen to the show sometimes, so I want them to know.
I'll let them come first. Okay.
Okay.
Oh God. But it's true. So many. I mean, it's just. Uh,
Yeah,
that-
it really can. It is going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
When you,
Oh, yeah.
when you start thinking about what if and could I and what if I change that and what if I could do
Coulda, shoulda,
that.
woulda. Yeah.
Yep. What would be like some of the surprising things that you came up with during your research?
Well, so not so much in the first book, although the science surprised me, quite frankly. When I started researching current theory about time travel, I was surprised to learn that, in fact, they'd already solved the math. That in theory, it's absolutely possible to travel through time.
Yeah.
The problem is that we haven't created an energy source that will move us fast enough, and we have not discovered a metal or a structure that will sustain human life inside that much force and energy. And
Yeah.
so, I don't believe that it's a if we'll figure out time travel, it's a when,
Well,
Yeah.
because
Well,
we've
yeah,
already
actually,
solved
yeah.
the math.
Quantum physics and in space already does exist. It's happened. You know what I mean? So that yes, it's there. You know,
Yeah,
the
it's
science is
there,
there,
and
the
it's
technology is there. It's
yes,
just yes, put in practical use with our means and our methods. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, and so it's a method and a materials issue more than anything at this point, and
Yeah. I
that
mean,
was
just
a
our
little
spaceships.
surprising.
Our spaceships burning up all the time. You know, the heat
Yes,
shield.
yeah.
The heat shield goes
yes,
back.
and
Gosh.
so that was a little surprising to learn that that the mathematicians are already talking about it not as a possibility but as yes, this is possible. It's just we have to find a metal and a source of energy to make it happen for us. So that was a bit surprising. In the second book, so I send the kids on a little jaunt to help that reclusive caretaker, and they go to the 1950s to Las Vegas where they're doing that atomic testing. And that research was interesting. From the perspective of someone who now understands the detriment of nuclear weapons,
Mm.
uh, it was surprising to learn the free for all that was going on in Las Vegas. They'd set up, uh, stadiums to watch these tests, and
Wow.
vendors
Yeah.
set up little stands to buy food, and uh, you know, uh, it was just astounding to me that it was like a spectator sport to be that close to atomic detonations. Um,
I know, right? And everybody there with their glasses and their drinks and their
as
Yeah.
if glasses were going to protect you, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the other thing that surprised me is that when they first started trying to test the impact it might have on humans, they used pigs because their skin is most like humans and their organs are most like humans, and they dressed them up in different kinds of clothing and put them out at different distances from these detonations to see what would happen. I was flabbergasted at at the actual reality of what was going on during that time period. So
Yeah.
that would be a thing I would like to stop. I would. I would like
Yeah.
the atom bomb to never have been invented. That would be something I would really, really get behind. Um,
yeah,
I love this comment in the chat from Doris.
yes,
Exactly what we are living through right now is going to be a time we won't want to travel back to. This will be this will be in the history books. But as much as I happen to agree, I also disagree because I know that somewhere there's something going on that's going to make a pivotal impact in our future. Like as much as everyone's going, oh my God, I'm sorry, this is going to go on. We have to shut down. We can't do this, yada, yada, yada. But look at the good things that are happening from it. The animals are coming back. The oceans, was it the China used to have to wear masks for breathing, and now they can actually see the sun. It's not smog polluted because they had to shut down. So I mean, there are, as horrid as what everything we're going through and all the people that we're losing and all the stuff that we're going through, there are good things on it.
Yes,
and I have to look at that. You know me, I'm
and
a
I would
slow-minded.
add, there's an appreciation for life
Yeah.
Yeah.
that I think even a year ago many people didn't understand.
Hmm.
Watching the most vulnerable of us fall victim to this, and watching the animals start to, roam in areas they hadn't been in a long time.
I have wild
Um,
turkeys walking up and down my street.
Oh,
yes, exactly. We now have this different appreciation of
Yeah.
life, and and how tenuous we are here, and how you need to find ways to express your concern and care for
Mhm.
others, maybe in creative ways.
Yeah.
I had pen pals again for the first time in probably 25 years
yeah,
because
right.
we can't communicate the way we wanted to, and we thought it would be fun to start writing letters. I haven't written letters in I can't tell you how many decades, and
Yeah.
we're having the most fun writing letters.
That's great. That's great. Well, we do this. We do
Yeah, we
video.
do it this way. I rather do it by voice because for me I'm not as good in the written word and the typed word. A lot of times it looks good but it doesn't come across good to the other person. So it's like Gina and I'd be talking, messaging through Facebook, and then we just started going to voice messages because it's faster. And then I can't laugh at her, or I can laugh at her for something that she's done.
I know. Thank God for Mama D is all I gotta say. She's
Yes.
my saving grace right there. I love her to death. We're appreciating the little kind things that are coming out in
Yeah.
the heart.
Yes.
And yes,
Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely.
we
So
are.
you can't
It's
look at this picture as, as just the horrible things that have occurred, the death
Yeah.
toll and the shutting down and the isolation. Although, I think it's made us much more aware of how easily it is to be isolated in this society, and found some more creative ways to stay connected with people that might be at risk. Uh,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
there
Or,
are some good things that happen
or
here.
catch up on reading. Get and start
Yeah.
reading
Buy a book.
books like this. Great series instead of because like I've watched every movie on
Exactly.
Netflix,
Yeah.
Amazon, and, all those things. I read a movie today. I did.
Yes,
I
and
sat and I was
you
reading.
know, I would encourage everyone, every adult, to go back and read what you thought was your favorite book as a kid. Looking at that through adult eyes absolutely changes that story and brings, something new that you probably wouldn't have realized. I grew up on Laura Ingalls Wilder and Nancy Drew and, all those different series.
The
And
Hardy Boys.
Hardy Boys, yeah.
yeah, and I went and picked up those books, through this pandemic, and really appreciated them on a whole different level. So I would say to people, if you can't figure out what to read, go pick up, what you think was your favorite book from seventh grade, and see if you can't appreciate it differently, or walk into, well, you can't walk into a library, uh, you know, pick
Yeah.
something at random, some new genre you haven't read or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
search on
I
something,
used to I used to read my mother's Harlequin romance novels.
Oh yeah, those are a book a day thing. You read them in a
Yeah. Oh
those are
yeah.
like things. Yeah.
Even those have some value, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
they take you to a place where you can imagine this wonderful, experience, and maybe you learn something about yourself and what you need in relationships. So, I'm all for, all kinds of different kinds of literature for people to, you
Right.
know,
And you know where you learn about all these things? Right here in the Fox Den.
That's right.
What do we do?
exactly.
Every week we bring you someone they've written a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that you need to be under your belt
Yes.
beyond the show is at least one book. You know, and So
Yeah.
we bring you every kind of genre. So there's something there to spark
Yes.
your
There's
imagination.
something there
Well,
for
I'm
everyone.
gonna put a squash on this conversation because we haven't advertised. We have to
Oh,
go to a commercial break for our advertiser. Otherwise,
okay.
he's not gonna be a happy bunny. So we'll be
Uh,
back in 3 minutes, people.
3 minutes. 3 minutes. We'll be right back.
Okay.
The Fox Den is now proudly sponsored by Vortex Ghost Gear, one of the leading fabricators of paranormal equipment. Bob Christopher is the founder and creator of Vortex Ghost Gear. He has decades of investigating, starting with his team at NEPA, and as lead in the popular local TV show Ghost Detectives, he has experience of how spirits could be seen or heard. Using this knowledge, he has manufactured equipment for specific scenarios of spirit manifestation and communication. He is the only manufacturer of the popular lifelike trigger prop cats and dogs. Using proximity meters wired to lights and sound, these prove to be highly effective communication devices in the field of study. The HTO, another Vortex exclusive, allowing specific items to be the highlight or trigger of your investigation. For example, place the item on a metal tray or attach directly to any metal object such as keys or glasses that continue to go missing or moved. Ask the spirit to touch the item. The HTO will light. It has a sound option as well. This device was used in Travel Channel's Ghost Nation with great results. The Dome, a static detector, can be the most useful device in your gear bag. This is to back up the theory that the spirits manifest using static electricity. Using several, you can track a spirit, for example, walking down a hallway, setting off each as it passes. The geophone detects vibrations. This is another way to track movement. If a claim is footsteps in the hallway or stairwell, set the sensitivity and place the device in that area. Its band of lights will show a range of vibrations from the slightest tapping, lighting only a few lights, to the loudest thumping, lighting the entire range. The Easy Scan Ghostboxes are very popular due to the ease of use. They are custom decorated to the individual or team using them. Bob programs and uses an Arduino-based computer scanning FM waves to potentially communicate with the spirit realm in real time. Every box is unique and all custom hand decorated by Gina Bankston. The V-Pod has a special place for those who love the idea of REM pods. Use this sleeker, smaller, easier to transport device. It is a must-have in your gear bag. Take your investigating to the next level with many of Vortex Ghost Gear's unique and custom creations by Bob Christopher. Visit www.vortexghostgear.com to view all the products and get your equipment today. You can also investigate with Bob and Gina with ghostly excursions, taking people to some of the most haunted locations in the USA. Visit www.ghostlyexcursions.com and join us on our next adventure. And we're back. She always reminds me. I just
Yeah,
get
but the
so
thing is, I got caught up in it today too, and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, we're late." Bob's going to be mad at me. He's going to send me an angry message. Okay, I doubt it. He's afraid of me. Okay, let's sort of get back onto the questions. Not that I want to, because I'm enjoying the conversation. But what trends do you see that for the science fiction literature?
Well, interestingly, the first time somebody wrote about time traveling was eons ago, back on papyrus, in fact. So we've been contemplating this for basically all of human history. In terms of what's happening now, I really see the time travel in literature um, going either one of two ways: way fantasy to dystopian sort of places, or tied much closer to the reality. There's not a middle ground there, I don't think. Um, so, in terms of the fantasy, I love that aspect of going someplace and suddenly you're on another planet where there's a whole society.
Yeah,
You know,
there's been tons and tons of movies. I love sci-fi movies.
yeah.
been tons and tons of movies about, the theme and different ways that they travel. And what was that one with Jodie Foster when she went
Yeah.
to the planet, and that was a cool one, But I mean, these things, all science fiction things start in someone's mind before they
Yeah.
Yes,
become out.
and
So
quite frankly, in culture, you will find that as the science advances, the literature will advance, and
exactly, you have more. You have more to write about,
Yeah.
yes, and so when we learn more, the literature shifts. H.G. Wells,
right?
that was considerably different than what we now understand for the science. So,
Mm.
uh, I think there's that, and I think all literature, romance, science fiction, mystery, it all sort of follows some trends in the culture. And I think what you find today is a mix of fantasy and this, I'll call it the desire to know, the kind of mystery thriller sort of aspect of some literature now. It's, the Dan Brown kinds of things. I want to
Yeah.
learn about this thing from history and how it really played out. I think those are all really fun sort of snapshots of culture.
Yep. But that's why I would want to go into the future. I mean, like way into the future because I want to know. I want to know history is history. It's been there, done that, it's done. We know it. We can look it up. You know, but the future. You
You
know,
want to know
Okay,
what's
if
coming
you
down
could
your
go to the
path?
future, where would you want to go? Do you have to if you have to choose one place, one episode do you want to know what's going to happen to your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, or do you want to know what's going to happen with the
what's going to happen
science?
to the planet, to our civilization, to our people?
So
Are we
if
going
you
to?
go into the future, I watched a movie and I can't remember what the name of it is, and it was like it was about time travelers.
Progressively, and like little leaps, because you couldn't go from here to 2,000 years from now because the planet might not be here, and then
Yeah,
you'd manifest into nothingness. You know,
yeah,
so and plus you don't know really where, and that's an H.G. Wells thing. Where you're going to end up, where your ship is going to land, and when you go into
mm,
the
Right.
future, you
Yeah.
don't know that.
So,
The
I
past, you
mean,
can kind of figure that
for,
out.
for me, it would probably be family related. I'd want to, check in on my great grandchildren and their children's children, and make sure that they were still okay.
yeah.
I'm very rooted in my family, and so how they're doing would probably be important to me.
Yeah. See, I would want to, I mean, I'm sure I would look all that up while I'm there, like it's the
Yeah, but
line
it's nothing.
going,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But I really would like to know, like, where are we advancing to, and how are people living now, and you
Oh,
know,
yeah,
yeah, I would want to. I think if I was not jumping super far, I would want to check and make sure that we, get past some of this divisive hate language. you know,
yeah. I want to know when
I'd, re-
racism ends.
oh, right,
I'd really
When it
like us
doesn't
to
matter
start
what your
being
color
more.
is or where you're from, just
Yeah.
you're human. You
Yes,
yeah,
know.
I'd really like us to get to a point where we respect one another as humans and care for one another as humans and
Yeah.
respect one another as humans. And so
right.
I'd want to check and make sure that we find our way back to that.
I hope so. I really, really hope so. I mean, we're entering into the age of Aquarius now,
Yeah.
so hopefully this is
Hopefully,
a step in that. I know, a step in that
Listen.
direction. You know what I mean? Because we got to get out of the bulls and the fightings and the this and that type
yes,
of generations. So, Aquarius is more of an enlightened generation, and I think we are a lot more
We
enlightened
are, yeah.
on the planet now. It's more accepted to be enlightened.
yes,
People are are more out there. It's more common knowledge than not now.
Yeah.
yes. I think we're just. I, I guess I would use the word almost narcissistic. If it's not about me, I don't want to know, and I don't like it. I'd really like us to get past that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but what about me?
Yeah. What about me? Thing.
All about me.
Yeah.
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 I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's like, no, mankind has got the planet, and mankind has to survive. It just has to. You know,
Yes.
the only way
You
to
know,
do that is to help
I
one
listened to
another.
a
You know,
I listened to a conversation the other day of some young people, and they were talking about how disconnected they felt, um, and how isolated they felt, and they thought but they all came to the same conclusion. It was somebody else's responsibility, and I thought
Yes.
therein is the problem.
Yeah.
We have to look in the mirror and say, I want to behave differently, and look at our neighbors and say, I want to treat you differently. And, then it will change. And, you can't make that government's fault or
no,
your fault or,
that's passing the buck, and that's putting the blame on someone else so that you can get, you know,
yeah.
Yeah.
go pass
So,
go card thing. Collect your $200 and go. Slide in there. But no, you have to do the walk. You have to walk the walk. The talk that
yeah.
you got to walk it.
So, that may end up being the enlightenment from this pandemic is, maybe this brings us to a better place where we respect one another.
Yeah.
And value life, because life is on the line. There are lots of people that I know that have lost people due to this,
Yeah,
pandemic. Yes, it's real. People, and the people that say it's not real, it's real.
It's
God,
real.
still,
yeah, yeah. I mean, even if you take a purely scientific, it has a high survival rate. That doesn't change the fact that it's very deadly and it attacks the most vulnerable,
right,
the worst, and
right.
if you don't think those two things are important, then
Yeah.
you're missing the boat here.
Yeah,
And
and
the
it's
thing is, it affects people in different ways. I
right.
heard something on the news the other day that there was this doctor, and she was in a COVID ward, and she worked really hard to make sure that her patients survived, and a lot of them did, pass away, and she couldn't handle the stuff that was going on around her. That she couldn't do it anymore, so she took her own life. So she may not have died from COVID, but she still died from COVID.
Yeah,
COVID takes people in so many ways. Yes, people get it and they recuperate and they're fine from it. And
yes,
I'm one of them. I had it and I'm better. I had no major
thank
signs.
goodness.
But people, it's not just dying from the disease, meaning you can't
Right.
breathe, you can't whatever. It's all the
It's
stuff that was
the
put on along with it.
right. It's the anxiety and the panic
Yep.
and the fear and the
Mhm.
yeah. It's
Children want to see their parents, but they can't go see their parents because they're afraid that they're going to transmit the disease to them. It's just like, and are your parents healthy enough? Like, I mean, where I live, we're in the red zone. For us in Canada, that's like the end all. And they are finally closing down as of the December 25th, all stores that don't sell food, like pharmacies, gas stations, and places like that. Like Walmart's going to have to close off all the clothing selling sections. Those type of
oh
stores, the big ones, have to stop selling. They're only going to be allowed to sell food. These are things that have to be done. But a lot of people are going, well, wait a minute, what can you? Do you have to buy clothes for 2 weeks? Because it's closing between the 25th of December and the 11th of January. So they're just shutting it down. But my question is, you're going to shut all this stuff down, and I'm 100% for it because 2 weeks at home. Sit on your butt, do whatever, read books, watch TV,
yeah,
crank the music, the stereo up, sing and dance. Done it. Just like nobody gives a damn, and enjoy those 2 weeks. Learn who you are inside. But then you also got to think about, wait a minute, I got rent to pay, I got food to buy. So these are things. So the government's got to think about. It's like not just in the U.S. but every other place. How are these
right.
people going to survive for those 2 weeks? So these are things that.
Well,
Okay, I
this
just
is
kind of on
also
my webpage. Sorry.
the part where you come in to try to help people,
Yeah.
because you may be an essential worker, you may be still working, you may still be making money, you may
Yeah.
still be doing all these things, but your neighbor is not, and your
Right.
neighbor is
Yeah.
struggling.
Right.
So cook a meal.
Where I live, we've been doing that for many months now, kind of off and on. But in a case, we've shut down here to just food and pharmacies. But
Yeah.
an example, Walmart didn't shut down where they sold anything else, so you could buy whatever you wanted in Walmart.
Yeah, well, they
Um,
did that here the last time as well. Walmart was open to sell whatever, but now our
now they're
premier, they
yeah,
said nope, that's it. You want to stay open, you can stay open only for the food section. They're going to have people go in and check. Now, whether they do or not, I don't know. And whether people go in there and say, "Hey, wait a minute, I can still buy clothes. Let's call." You have to think about other people. And like Gina says, if you have somebody who is an essential workers still have children. So that our school in our neighborhood, the daycare will stay open like it did before, even though it was closed, for the children of the essential workers, so the nurses and the doctors and the police officers
right,
who still have to go to work. Their children can't stay home alone, so there has to be daycares. So
right.
our school has a daycare, and they opened up just for that. So these are things that people don't think about. It's like, oh,
Wow.
shut everything down. Well, yeah, but there's a limit.
Yeah, I mean, at our church, we helped all the essential workers. So
Awesome.
we sort of, took in children who, when the daycares closed down, but the parents were still working because they were nurses and doctors and pharmacists and yeah. So we had sort of a neighborhood daycare going on, where
This
we
is where humanity comes out,
Yeah.
and helping and doing like what JB's doing, stuff like that. That's what you got to do now. This is going to be our lesson, instead of hate your neighbor, fight with your neighbor, fight with someone just because they live in a different continent, and their skin is a different color.
they
Instead of that,
voted for a
how about
different
here?
party.
Can I help you? Everyone's
Yeah,
supposed to eat, sleep, and poop. Okay, we all do that, right?
yeah,
We all
yeah.
do that. Okay, I don't care what color your skin is. We all do that. All right.
Yeah.
Can
Yes, and,
True.
and we all deserve some level of respect. It doesn't matter what color your skin
Yeah.
is, or
everybody?
whether
And if
there's an
someone's
M or an X on your birth certificate. It doesn't matter, And I think that's where it changes, is when down in a grassroots level, people start to see things differently and treat people differently, and hopefully it
hey, you
catches
know
fire.
what? You know what I just thought of? This is those damn kids' fault for going back in time, changing something. they,
See?
they, they made this virus.
I got a
They went
question.
back
What made you
there.
start writing?
Yeah.
JB, what
Yes.
made you start writing? And were
I've been
these your
off and
first
on.
books?
These are my first published books. I started writing off and on probably from the time I was a teenager. Most of it unfinished until I got much older, and my career was sort of in a holding pattern, and I thought, I've always wanted to do this. I'm gonna give this a try, and out popped that first book. So, aside from the Time Benders series, I've written 2 children's books. I 3 years ago became a grandma, and
Yes.
Yeah. I got a 2-year-old.
and
Yep.
yeah, and that inspired me to write some children's books. I'm working on getting those published now. So, and my other little project that hopefully will come out next spring. My mother was recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and so I'm writing a sort of a heartwarming, more lighter side of that terrible disease, and how
Yeah.
there's a person there that has lived a life and has done wonderful things, wonderful, tiny, small, amazing things.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I have a couple other projects.
I
It's
look forward to
funny,
that book.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you got to be
funny.
in charge. That shines through. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Once I started writing, now I can't seem to stop the ideas.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's what I was trying to get to before. It's like, are you like dreaming? You always have to have a notebook near you. You know what I
I
mean?
always have a notebook near me.
Yeah.
Yes, I am an avid note taker, and oh, wouldn't this be a great idea? Or I'll see something or hear something, and go, oh, that would make a great story. Yeah, so I have notes all over the place, and yeah, so currently I'm working to find an illustrator for my children's books, and working on and working on those other, the third book. You're pointing.
It's off to Gina because she's an
Yeah,
artist.
so
She's an artist.
yeah,
So
I've
yeah,
seen a little bit of that.
have a chit chat with my girl.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, it depends what it is, but I mean, but we know some other people too. That
Yeah,
would
exactly.
Yeah.
really help.
So
That's the thing. People helping people.
Yeah.
Um,
yes, absolutely. Yeah. So so the first book came out in 2018. So I sat down to start writing probably summer, fall of 2017, and it came out. The first book, Time Benders and the Machine, came out in like August of 2018. And the Time Benders and the Two Promises came out this spring in March.
and the
So,
next one is in January.
it'll probably be released in early March.
No, January. No,
I'll try really hard, but there's this whole editing process that has to go on after you write.
Gina's like, I don't care about editing. Send it to me anyway.
I know, send me an unedited version. I'll edit it. But
You could get on my beta reading list.
yeah, I could do
There you
that.
go.
You
Yeah.
forgot comma here and space there, and blah blah blah.
So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. So I've been writing probably in various ways my whole life. I read like crazy. So
Yeah, that would be cool. That could be a cool thing. That could be a
yes,
subject of a book right there.
electronic dream recorder, wouldn't that be great? Because then think of the stories that would come from that.
Whoa. Hey,
Well,
Bob.
it's that one that there is a movie like that, and because we're talking sci-fi here. Someone goes into someone's mind while they're dreaming, and they into their dreams. Oh God, who was in that movie? I can almost picture it. I never
There's a
watched it.
couple of movies that go
I
there.
only saw the trailer for it, but I didn't watch it. Yeah, but I mean, it's something like that. But that's a
Yeah.
whole. You could figure it out. I mean, I'm good at reading and watching.
Yeah,
But I get some
that'd
great
make an
ideas.
interesting story, actually, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It really, really. That's pretty cool. Thanks, Loki.
Yeah.
I
We'll
love.
have to give credit for that idea if it turns into a book.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, where does it? I mean, where do the ideas come from? I mean, you got to have a vivid imagination. Like
I think you do. You have to have. I mean, I personally believe that I'm a better writer because I read all the time,
yeah.
Yeah.
and hearing how someone else puts their vision on paper, um, makes everybody, I think, a better reader, a better writer.
Oh
Uh,
God.
you know,
Character development is really crucial and critical, because you want to be involved with the characters. So
yeah,
that's really
yes,
critical,
you want to get done reading a book, I think, and be able to relate to something. The character, the plot, the environment the setting the book takes place in. You have to finish reading a book and go, I really loved that character. I really loved that story. It's so cool that they traveled through time. Something, right, that
Mhm.
captures you. That's what makes a great book, I think.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, and don't spend too much time on descripting, things.
Yeah,
You're not writing a screenplay. You're writing a
yeah,
book. You know,
Yeah.
and, yeah. So the more you read, absolutely, I couldn't agree more on that fact. The more you read, the better writer you would become. But did you have like a great literary teacher? Like I had, right, you go through school,
Yeah.
every damn year of school, you are taught English. And we all go to the class, sit there with our books, but you don't really get it. You don't really understand it until either one teacher really gets through your head or you start writing,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
My eighth grade literature teacher um, made us read The Grapes of Wrath,
Oh,
and um, and then we had to pick something other than talking about the character or the time in history and write about it, like take it and turn it into another piece of literature. It was probably the most influential class I've ever had.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. That's great.
And by the way, that book is fantastic.
That's
She's going to print it. She's going to publish it. Now, you are an independent author. I mean, independent book, blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
Independent author. How did you go? How did you go about publishing your books? Like, I mean, because everybody who's listening, I mean, I've only been able to sit down and read a little bit of it because life is crazy.
Yes.
But they're good books and they draw you in. And this is what's good about these books is that you get drawn in and you can actually picture the stuff that's going. Like for me, I have that type of imagination that I can see what I'm reading.
Yes.
And but what is it? Because you, we've heard so many stories about people. Um, Loki says she missed that class of literature. We get so many stories about authors sending out scripts and manuscripts and getting back
Yeah.
rejection after rejection, and they go, books go unpublished. So how is it that you
Well,
decided to do it independently?
so clearly, writers today have all kinds of options to get
Mm-hmm.
their stories told. Historically, you pursued a big house publisher and you tried to convince them that it was worth the money for them to publish your book. That's still an avenue. It's where you write. Although now you can't generally write directly to the big house publishers, you have an agent. So there's
Mm-hmm.
this whole group of people who are literary agents. And so when you're writing these pitch letters, you're writing to those agents and you're basically selling them on the idea of your story. And
Mm-hmm.
if they decide they like that idea, then they will represent you and go to, Random House and Simon and Schuster and all
yep.
those big long-standing publishing houses, and they will get one of them to contract you and publish your book. That's considered traditional publishing route.
Right.
Now, however, we have all kinds of ways to get books done.
Yeah.
You can print them yourselves. You can engage in contracts with the same printing houses that Simon and Schuster uses. You can go do it all electronic on Kindle and Nook and Apple, and you can do all of those things, which has spawned an entire industry at Amazon for Kindle Direct Press. Where they'll actually print for you. So
Right.
there's all those kinds of things. There's also tools and ways that you can print it all on your own, market it all on your own. And then there's the path that I took, which is considered assisted publishing. It's like working with a traditional publishing house in that it's staffed by some of those same kinds of people who have history doing that. And they manage copyrights and ISBN registration and things like that. But you buy into that a little bit. So
Yeah.
the author pays some of the money, the publisher, that assisted publisher, pays some of the money, and it generally operates on a print on demand. So there's not, 100,000 copies sitting somewhere. You go
Right.
and order my book on Amazon, and they will ask for it, and it gets printed and sent off.
Yep.
So I chose that path for a couple of reasons. One, once I'd gotten that first book done, I was really anxious to get it out there, and I didn't want to wait for a year's worth of rejection letters until I found
Yeah.
the agent,
Exactly.
found the publisher, and
Well, I don't think you would have. You
right. So I was way too excited to wait around for that. And two, when you go that assisted publishing route and those other independent routes, I own the copyright. I own the rights to the story, which was
Right.
really important to me. It's my
Yeah.
vision,
It's your baby.
my tale, and I wanted to own all of the rights to it. And generally speaking, so not in every case and not with every publisher. So I don't want to box them all into to something that's probably not accurate across the board. But generally, you sacrifice some rights when you sign a big contract with one of those big traditional houses.
yeah,
Yeah.
because they'll edit your book.
They'll edit the book, and they won't ask you if it's okay if they take out that whole chapter. And that was important to me. So I
Yeah.
chose a route that would allow me to still control that effort. Um, so I pay people who do it for a living to read through and offer suggestions to me about plot development and character development and pace and things like that. So that when I put a book out, I have the advantage of what would have been that whole editing department at Simon and Schuster potentially.
Yep.
So I think it makes a much better finished product.
Yeah.
And that
Uh,
works for you. So it depends on it depends on the writer, and if you have maybe some extra content in the book that could
yeah,
it might be
I think it's very much a
go do those things, but your
yeah,
book,
it's very much I think a choice of every writer to decide. Is it more important to you to have Random House inside your book, or is it more important to you to get it out when you want it
Yeah.
out, or
Exactly.
to own the copyright, or to, have some control? And the fact of the matter is every day, hundreds of thousands of books get put out into the world.
Yeah.
And even if you get that big contract with Simon and Schuster, it doesn't mean that they're going to market the daylights out of it and you're suddenly going to sell 200,000 books. So, you have to understand as a writer that you are the marketing department.
Yeah.
yeah,
If you aren't prepared to talk about it, go out, put yourself out there, try and get to your target audience. It doesn't really matter whose name is on the inside of the cover of the book.
right.
Yeah.
The benefit of your books, though, there is no target audience. This is an everybody book.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly wrote it
Yeah.
for a teenage kind of crowd. It's very much, written towards that. But, I've had a lot of adults tell me that they absolutely love it. I'm not sure if that's the nostalgia because it's the 70s or
Yeah,
the relatability of the characters. I knew somebody who was Deb, or I knew Ken when I was in high school, or I was Kim, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So but yeah, so it's turning out a surprise to me that it has such a wider audience than I originally anticipated.
Right. How did you know so much about a boarding school?
I knew absolutely nothing about boarding schools, so when I started writing this story and I decided I wanted to put the kids in a boarding school, to take them out of their element and let them learn this cool thing. I actually, that was one of the things that I said, I want this to be a real live place.
Yeah.
So I went reading about boarding schools in the upper northeast of the country and picked this one because of its long history, because John F. Kennedy was a student there, and because it's still in existence. And so I did a lot of research about it. I actually went there. I took a drive and went there and saw the campus and the town and things. And So I went to the places that I was going to write about so that I could describe them. There's a park nearby that the kids go to, and the town that they go to. All that stuff is really there. And so, that was an important element in the story that I wanted to be real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the back of the book, you say that. That's part of your factoids in the back. That this event is real, the school is real, this, all that kind of stuff. So the haunted building was really there.
The building was really there, and it was really used as the original classroom building, and it was taken out of service in I think 69. It was torn down, and the area was something else was built on that space. But when the kids would have been there, the building was there.
It's so cool. It's so cool. I love it. I love the storyline. I love everything about it. Everything about it. I can't wait to get back to, because this weekend I'm going to be, finishing book 2. I didn't even know I have to wait for book 3 though. So
Well,
coming out in January.
I probably could give you a sneak peek of book 3 just to help solve your dilemma.
Just to tease
and give
you.
Something to do in January.
Seriously, if you leave the cliffhangers the way that you do, as soon as I finished book 1, I had to read chapter 1 of book 2, just right away. I'm like, oh wait, what did you do?
Well, I'm really sorry to say I do that again at the end of book 2. So
yeah.
when you finish reading, you could email me and I could send you the first couple of chapters of the next.
That's very good. That is very good. So what do we got left here? All right, we got 20 minutes. Okay. Well, all right. Since you've got this geared towards kids, why do you think it's more important that you're gearing that towards more of a teenage readership?
Well, that comes from personal experience. So I have 3 children. The oldest, my daughter, was a voracious reader, and she got to a point at about 13, probably, where I couldn't find reading material for her that was challenging enough, that wasn't wholly inappropriate to be handing to a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
And in the case of my 2 boys who came next, it was next to impossible to find something to read that would hold their interest after about the 4th grade. So, that was foremost in my mind when I decided this was going to be about teenagers, was that it was going to be a book that you could hand to a 12-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl, right, and be comfortable with them reading it. I think that is an aspect of literature that's really lacking, and I don't mean to disrespect J.K. Rowling, but I think kids need examples that they can actually emulate.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah, and think and repercussions for actions, and so you're actually you're teaching too.
Yes,
and you're getting history lessons in there, and on a entertainment level,
Well, they do regular teenage things. They meet boys and girls, and they go to dances, and they have parties, and they have little disagreements, and they break up with friends, and those are normal teenage kinds of things, and you can't write material for that age group and not include those things. They'll think that you're not paying attention to who they are. Right. So
now, my kids, they were a little smaller, because they're very old now. But but
they are. You aren't, but they are.
They were very avid readers, both of them, like crazy readers. This would have been something that they would have loved. That each one, and they're like night and day, but both of them would have liked this. But I think again, what I was saying is, in every every person, because it can be a family thing. It can be something like, oh, hey, the kids read this thing and say, Mom, you'd love this, and then
Yeah.
they something to talk about. And then, the topic, again, the topic of would you, should you, could you, of time travel.
Yeah, think about the conversations that you would have with your kids when
Yeah.
you were reading that. Yeah, we did that. So, one of the things that happened at that time when my daughter was looking for reading material is I pulled out my old Laura Ingalls Wilder books and I said, well, how about if we read these? And she said, well, you read them, because she'd missed, the time when Mom read every night. And before we were about 2 chapters into it, everybody was crawling up onto the bed to hear the stories. And the discussions we had the next day at breakfast over what we read that night before, was probably more fun than reading those stories again to my kids.
Yeah.
So, we spent the better part of a year reading through the entire Laura Ingalls Wilder series.
Ah,
And the
Nice.
questions that the boys asked were even more interesting than, what my daughter got out of it. So, yes, very much when I was writing this book, one, I wanted it to be a series, I think, from the beginning, so that there was a continuation of the story beyond just a book. And two, I wanted it to be something that would have something for the boys, the girls, the 12-year-olds, the 15-year-olds, and the 20-year-olds, you know, um, so that they all could find something they could relate to.
wow. Well, you did it. So
Yeah.
I just, hopefully that once this is all done, that this can be something bigger, for you. Like, what would you like to see it like turned into something like a Netflix series or a Hulu series or something like that, or would
Well,
you rather keep
when I was writing them, it didn't even occur to me, but almost every person I've talked to has asked that question.
really?
So clearly there's a message there.
Hmm.
So,
Universe? You think?
yeah, the universe is telling me that this might lend itself to something like that. That's so far out of the realm of my wheelhouse that I wouldn't know the first thing about writing a screenplay.
Yeah.
So
You get,
I would have to work with someone to make that happen.
yeah,
Uh, but I think it would be something that you could take your 11-year-old kid to and you would still find enjoyable. And I think that we lack movies like that as well. So it would be fun
yep.
to have that happen. It'd be great to see that coming from something that I started, but it sure wasn't what I was working towards.
Yeah, because you want kids to be reading. You want them to read. Reading is important. And kids today too, they do get, oh, go turn the computer on, or go do this.
Yeah.
Go, they're not reading. They're not in touch. You don't get the family dynamics that you used to anymore. That's a thing that can be coming out of the COVID situation, is families are getting closer. Either that or they want to kill each other, but they're getting closer.
But
And, yeah,
read more. Yeah, my granddaughter's now 3 years old, and I probably send her a book every month.
oh, nice.
Hey, here's something new for you to read about, or she'll be on the phone with me and mention something that she thought was funny, and I'll go find a book about it and send it to her, and she just absolutely loves that. Oh, it's another book from my grandma. I wonder what this one is. So I think you have to read to a kid. You have to get them to look at the world a little differently, and the best way to do that is through the pages of a book. And you never know, right? You might open a book and there might be something in there about math and computers and programming and building a machine. And some 14-year-old goes, wow, this is really cool. And they go learn some more about it, and it turns into their lifelong career.
Right.
That's the cool part about reading.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the sharpest time for our brain, functioning wise, is when we're babies, when we're younger, right?
Yeah.
The baby's brain develops faster and can learn so much more. Just because they can't talk doesn't mean they're not learning. Like you
Yeah.
show them flashcards, they'll know exactly what it is. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, babies' brains are brilliant, and children's brains are brilliant. You know, they want to play, yes, but you
Read to
make
them. Read to
reading,
them every day.
yeah, make reading playtime. And it's so important because yes, they are our future. We are
Yes.
depending upon them.
Well, and I can remember telling my boys when they were struggling with finding something to read, I would say to them, if you can read, you can learn anything.
That's right. That's
You
right.
can do anything.
Yep. Everything that's worth doing or learning is written. I mean, it's out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's out there.
And if it's not written down somewhere, then learn about it and you write about it. So, you know, yeah, I,
Other
I I love children's reading time. I read at the preschool at the church all the time. I absolutely love the light you see in kids' faces when they hear something or they see something in a book.
Do you get very animated when you're reading to the kids?
I do. Different voices and everything.
Awesome, awesome. Well, hopefully, you'll be reading your children's books to them. At the
Are
libraries.
any
Yeah.
of your children interested in writing?
I'm sorry?
Are any of your children interested in writing?
No, not even well, I guess I know. My daughter, she writes on the internet for the company she works for. She has a literature degree, but I don't know if she necessarily feels like at some point she'll start writing. And the other two, no, no. My middle son is absolutely a do it with his hands kind of character, and my youngest is a science and math and programming guy. He probably wouldn't want to write anything down.
He writes
But
posts.
they
That's
all learned about the things they like from reading.
Yeah, my kids wrote that. Man, it would be night and day stories. They really would. Jackie, who is like the sweetest thing on the planet, would write about the scariest lore out there. It's really, that's the stuff she loves to read. And I think I scared her too many times when she was a kid. She's not
so
even fazed by it now. Not at all.
Well, I've
But she
seen the evidence of your love of Halloween.
exactly. We went to the haunted overload up in New Hampshire, and like I'm like holding on to her in the back as she's already gone through it, and she's just walking through like nothing bothers her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love all that stuff. So yeah, she takes after me in that sense. But you should see her decorations
yeah.
all inside. Mine were all outside. Hers were all inside. She's a master, a master. She's very artsy too, extremely so.
It's
So,
funny how your kids all come from the same house and they end up so different, huh?
oh my God. Oh, I know. Just like the kids in your books, they're all different, yet they come together and they work together nicely, and they use their talents. And that's the thing that you try to get through to some people. They down themselves like, oh well, I can't write, I can't do this, I can't do that, but I can sing. You know what I mean? So sing,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Well, I can't sing, I can't do this,
Yeah.
I can draw. So draw.
Draw, play music,
Yeah,
find
whatever.
your thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're all good things. They're all needed. All
Yes.
these
Yeah.
things are needed for a civilization to survive. All these talents are needed.
Yes,
True.
absolutely.
Yep. And so then the storytellers are huge because that's how history gets told. It's through stories. It's how
Yes.
it's always been told.
Yeah. Before the written word, there were storytellers. It was all verbal, but it's still a
Yep.
story.
Still
Cavemen with the pictures
storytelling.
on the wall, I
Yep.
mean, So everything stems back from them. Hunter gatherers, stories, nurturers, song, dance, celebration,
Absolutely.
all of it. And it's not really changed. We're still doing
No,
all
no, not even a little bit. On my website, I have my favorite time traveling literature, and some startling news about when the first time that it was in about the 400 BC, or the first time there's something written about time travel. So yeah, so it's
Yep.
a fascinating subject and something we've been writing about and talking about for a long, long, long time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
What is your website for those people who are listening who want to go check it out?
yeah.
My website is JB YANNI, all one word, .com.
So easy. I will make
www.
sure that we put the link. I'll put the link into to the YouTube and to the Facebook show when we're done
Great,
the show, because I can't do it now. But I will make sure that those get there. So
great.
go check out her website for sure. Plus, you can get to order the books.
Yeah. Well, there's links on my website where you can go buy the books, but of course, online retailers for sure, like Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com. All of anybody who has an online retailership is going to be able to get the books from there. And then where I live in the Chicago area, there are quite a few independently owned bookstores that carry them. So far, that's as far as I know. I am in the library systems, so some libraries might have it, so that you could, borrow it from your library.
Exactly. And
However, you're able to do that.
one fun thing that I've done with a few of authors, because I also have a show. I had an author donate books to me, and I donated for me it was an elementary school level books, and so you can buy the books and you can donate it into the high school.
Yes.
That's really,
Imagine
Yeah.
all the minds that you can touch.
yep.
Yes.
Talk
I
about a
one
domino
of
effect.
one of my relatives teaches a GED class, and I send her a box every fall for her
Oh,
Oh,
class.
nice.
oh, oh, that's so sweet. That's fantastic. So besides like children's novels or anything like that, do you have anything like on a that you might want to write more? Or is this your total genre, like the science fiction and the
You
children's? Is
know,
there something that you like to dip
my
the toes in?
yeah, my favorite genre to read is historical fiction. History is my thing, and I absolutely love, love, love books that put a fictional story around a historical time or event. So, you know, I might want to try that, but I feel like the bar might be a bit high because it's my favorite genre. Um,
It's going to be
so,
hard on yourself.
yeah, it might be harder to write. Um, so, I might try my hand at that. And I also have been sort of tossing around a mystery thriller kind of
Hmm.
series. So we'll see.
Well, you need a
Clearly,
haunted. Something's going to be haunted. You do a haunted story for me. Haunted
I
mystery. So,
I recently did a podcast with a gentleman who ran a paranormal site, and he said, maybe you should do a haunting.
yeah,
There you go.
right. I know, because that could have been cool because they were going, the kids in this book, yeah, the first one, the machine, they're going into the haunted, building.
Yeah.
What would have been really cool is, the ghost pointing, out where the
Check
cabinet was.
out that drawer.
This cabinet right here, this unmarked, this is the one. You know what I mean? It would have been really cool,
Right.
because I think a lot today the ghost stories that are out, they're not like the old ghost stories. When we were kids, we'd watch a scary ghost story, but it would be a story,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it would be a ghost, and the ghost would be a character, and the character,
Yeah.
whether it was children or adults in a castle and or whatever, you know what I mean?
I
But
just,
it is,
I just remember the TV show I used to watch with the Ghost and Mrs. Muir.
yeah,
90
yes,
seconds.
and now it's all blood and gore. We don't need blood
Yeah.
and gore. We want a
Not
good
enough.
and
Yeah,
something with
a good kind of thriller sort of, spine tingling sort of story.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that was our
Our
warning, right?
92nd morning.
Yeah, our 90-second warning. So what is that? Okay, right there. Um, but I just, people get these books, all right, because there's
Yeah.
going to be
60 seconds.
4 by the time she's done. JB, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank
We're
you.
going to
Thank
be
you so
talking.
much for having me.
Yeah, hang here for a few minutes, all right, after the show stops. Okay. I'm going to play our exit video. Thank you all. Thank you,
Thank
Blog
you.
Talk, for the many, many years on this network. And we will be here. Actually, no, the next
We're
2
taking
weeks.
a text 2 weeks off.
Yeah, holidays.
Oh,
Christmas and
yay.
New Year's. Christmas and New Year's. We will see you all in January. All right. But we might do a pop-up show here and there because you know me and Mama D. All right. Love
Keep
you.
us in.
Thank you, JB. This was awesome. I love you.
Thank you.
Hang on. Thank you again for joining us for another episode in the Fox Den. We're here every Thursday evening from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, bringing you a variety of guests, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and our Anchor venues. We would love it if you would go to our YouTube channel, The Fox Den with Gina B and Mama D, and please subscribe, share, and definitely hit the notification button to never miss a show. We'll see you all next week, and subscribers, watch for our pop-up shows as well.